At the tea before my brother's wedding, his fiancée sneered and said, "His sister? Just a sad little single mom." My mom laughed and added, "She's like a clearance item, damaged and unwanted." The whole room burst into laughter. Then my 8-year-old son stood up, calmly walked to the stage, and said, "I know something about the bride." And that's when everything fell apart. Can you imagine standing at your brother's wedding, watching him marry the woman who'd systematically tried to erase you from his life, only for your own mother to publicly mock you? My world shattered that day, but what happened next, when my innocent 8-year-old son exposed the bride's darkest secret right there at the reception, was a moment I'll never forget. Hey everyone, I'm Samantha Wilson, 32, and honestly, I never thought my brother Jeffrey's wedding would become the most humiliating day of my entire life. We were so close growing up, practically inseparable. But then he met Vanessa, and everything just shifted. That day, standing in that ridiculously lavish ballroom, watching my whole family practically worship her, I had no idea how quickly my world was about to crumble with just a few cruel words. And the worst part? It wasn't just Vanessa's public mockery, it was my own mother joining in. If you've ever dealt with toxic in-laws, hit that like button. You know the struggle. Being a single mom to Noah? Yeah, that was never in my life plan. But honestly, it's become the most rewarding journey I could have ever imagined. 5 years ago, I finally got my interior design business off the ground, and I found this rhythm, balancing work with raising my energetic, super intuitive little boy. We've got our cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a great neighborhood, with this tiny garden where Noah grows sunflowers that are literally taller than he is. Our life isn't perfect, but it's ours. We built it from scratch after my ex-husband, Walter, just walked out when I was 7 months pregnant. Said he wasn't ready for fatherhood. Can you believe that? Jeffrey and I grew up in a middle-class suburb of Boston, just 2 years apart. As kids, we were like 2 peas in a pod. We'd build these epic blanket forts in the living room, and our mom, Diana, would reluctantly let them stay up for days. We even had our own secret languages that drove our dad, Harold, absolutely nuts at the dinner table. Jeffrey was the one who taught me how to ride a bike when our busy parents just couldn't find the time. He ran alongside me, holding on, until I finally found my balance. And when I broke my arm falling from our treehouse at 10, he literally carried me half a mile home on his back. That's the kind of brother he was. But even then, there was always this weird undercurrent in our family. It got more obvious as we got older. Jeffrey was the golden child, you know? The star student, perfect report cards, athletic trophies. Me? I was creative, did well enough in school, but I never quite measured up in my parents' eyes. Diana and Harold never missed Jeffrey's football games or debate competitions. My art shows, though? Usually, it was just Jeffrey who showed up. But he was always there, giving me honest critiques and just unwavering support. "You've got the real talent in the family, Sammy," he'd tell me, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. "They just don't get it yet." After college, Jeffrey went to law school, became this corporate attorney at a super prestigious firm. I went to design school, worked for a few places, then branched out on my own. And when Noah came along and Walter just vanished, Jeffrey was my absolute rock. He helped me move into my first apartment as a single mom, assembled Noah's crib, even took night shifts with the newborn so I could actually get some sleep. "That's what siblings are for," he'd say, rocking Noah at 3 in the morning. "We're a team. Always have been." That's the Jeffrey I knew. Then, about 18 months ago, Jeffrey brought Vanessa to Sunday dinner at my parents' house. And wow, she was stunning. In that conventional, head-turning way, you know? Tall, blonde, dazzling smile, impeccable style. Her family owned this huge, successful real estate development company, and she worked in their marketing department. My mom, Diana, was immediately charmed. Vanessa had all these stories about charity galas and vacations in the Maldives. But I noticed something right away. Vanessa's smile changed when she talked to me versus my parents. With Diana and Harold, she was so animated, so engaging, complimenting my mom's home decor, asking my dad about his golf game. But when I mentioned my design business, She'd just nod politely, then immediately turn the conversation back to Jeffrey's latest court victory. Interior design must be such a fun little hobby, she commented once, while helping my mom clear the dishes. It's nice you can do that while raising Noah. Jeffrey didn't seem to notice the subtle dismissal, but I caught the flash of judgment in her eyes when Noah accidentally spilled his juice, and I just calmly cleaned it up instead of scolding him. Your son seems a bit undisciplined, she whispered to me later, when we were alone in the kitchen. Children need firm boundaries, you know. My stomach just clenched. Despite all these red flags, I tried to give Vanessa the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just nervous meeting Jeffrey's family. Maybe her privileged upbringing made it hard for her to relate to my single mom's struggles. I even invited her to lunch, just the two of us, hoping to build some kind of connection. But she always had an excuse: work meetings, hair appointments, charity committees. Noah, bless his open heart, was so excited about having a new aunt. He made Vanessa a hand-drawn card, "Welcome to our family," written in his best second-grade handwriting. When he presented it to her at another family dinner, she took it with 2 fingers, like it was contaminated, and just placed it aside without even opening it. I watched his little face fall, and something just hardened in my heart against this woman who couldn't spare a moment of genuine kindness for an innocent child. Why doesn't Aunt Vanessa like my drawings? Noah asked me on the drive home. Some grown-ups just don't understand how special children's art is, I told him, fighting back tears. But I think your drawings belong in museums. I tried sharing my concerns with Jeffrey, but he was already completely under Vanessa's spell. You're just not giving her a chance, Sam, he said, his voice uncharacteristically cold. Vanessa comes from a different world. She's trying her best. But I wasn't sure she was trying at all. And as their relationship progressed, I watched my brother slowly transform from the supportive, kind man I'd known all my life into someone who prioritized Vanessa's feelings and opinions above all else, even his own family. It was heartbreaking. Jeffrey proposed to Vanessa after only 6 months of dating. He announced it at our parents' anniversary dinner, presenting her with a diamond ring that must have cost 3 months of his salary. My mom shrieked with delight. My dad clapped Jeffrey on the back. And I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Noah, bless his heart, innocently asked if this meant Vanessa would come to his school play next month. Her tight smile and vague "we'll see" spoke volumes. The engagement party was held at the country club, where Vanessa's family were long-standing members. I spent 2 weeks' worth of my grocery budget on a new dress, determined to fit in with the crowd of socialites and corporate lawyers. Noah wore his first little suit, his hair slicked down with water because, well, we couldn't afford fancy styling products. Throughout the evening, I was introduced as Jeffrey's sister, without any mention of my name or profession. When a few guests actually learned I was an interior designer and asked for business cards, Vanessa would swoop in. Samantha just does small residential projects, she'd clarify, her tone making it sound like I decorated dollhouses rather than actual homes. My friend Alessandra does the most amazing commercial spaces. You should really talk to her. The wedding planning began immediately, with a target date just 6 months away. Vanessa hired a high-end wedding planner who looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language when I suggested some cost-saving alternatives for the flowers. We're not on a budget, Vanessa stated flatly. Jeffrey and I want the best of everything. I noticed she said Jeffrey and I, but the decisions all seemed to be hers. My brother, once so opinionated and strong-willed, now deferred to Vanessa on everything, from the venue to the font on the invitations. Traditionally in our family, siblings were always part of the wedding party. When I casually asked Jeffrey who his groomsman would be, he looked so uncomfortable. Sam, Vanessa thinks it would be better if you focused on helping with Noah during the wedding. She's having her sorority sisters as bridesmaids, and it would be uneven to have you stand up, too. I swallowed hard and nodded, pretending it didn't feel like a slap in the face. Later that night, I cried in my bathroom with the shower running so Noah wouldn't hear me. It felt like I was losing my brother, piece by piece. The bridal shower was another exercise in humiliation. Vanessa's mother rented a private room at this exclusive women's club, and the attendees were primarily her friends and family. My mom, Diana, was seated at the head table, while I was placed at a distant table with distant cousins I barely knew. During the gift opening, Vanessa gushed over every present until she reached mine, a handcrafted photo album I'd spent weeks making, with spaces for wedding photos and honeymoon memories. "Oh, how crafty," she said with a tight smile, quickly setting it aside for the next gift, an expensive crystal vase that elicited genuine excitement. As if the slight wasn't enough, while mingling later, Vanessa accidentally bumped into me, spilling red wine down the front of my cream-colored dress, the only nice outfit I had for these events. "Oh no, what a shame," she said, dabbing ineffectually at the spreading stain. "Red wine is impossible to get out. You should go home and change." Her eyes told a very different story than her concerned words. With each passing week, Jeffrey became more distant. Our weekly coffee meetups were canceled more often than not. He stopped dropping by to play with Noah, who kept asking when Uncle Jeffrey was coming over. My parents noticed nothing amiss, fully absorbed in the excitement of their son marrying into such a good family. 2 weeks before the wedding, Noah spent hours making a special drawing for the couple, a picture of all of us together as a family. He carefully colored Jeffrey in his lawyer suit, Vanessa in a princess dress, himself with his favorite dinosaur t-shirt, and me holding hands with everyone. "This is so we remember we're all family now," he explained, his face so serious. I helped him frame it in a simple wooden frame I painted gold to make it look more special. When we gave it to Vanessa at the rehearsal dinner, she said, "How sweet," before placing it under the table. Later, when she thought no one was watching, I saw her toss it into a decorative trash bin near the restaurant's entrance. My heart just sank. I retrieved it when she wasn't looking and kept it in my car, unsure whether to tell Noah the truth or let him believe his gift was hanging somewhere in their new condo. That night, I seriously considered not attending the wedding at all. But despite everything, I loved my brother. And I knew that my absence would create a family rift that might never heal. So I decided to go, to hold my head high, and to be there for Jeffrey. Even if he couldn't see how his fiancée was isolating him from people who truly loved him. "We'll just go for the ceremony and maybe a little of the reception," I told Noah as I tucked him in. "Uncle Jeffrey will be happy we came, and that's what matters. And I'll get to see if Vanessa likes my other drawing," Noah said sleepily, referring to another artwork he'd made specially to give the bride on the wedding day. I stroked his hair, marveling at his persistent optimism in the face of such rejection. "You have the biggest heart of anyone I know," I whispered, hoping Vanessa wouldn't crush it again. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect June day that seemed to mock my inner turmoil. Noah burst into my room at 6 a.m., already excited about wearing his fancy clothes and riding in a limousine for the first time, a luxury I had splurged on since parking near the exclusive downtown venue would be a nightmare. "Do you think Aunt Vanessa will let me throw flower petals?" he asked as I helped him with his clip-on tie. Jimmy got to throw petals at his aunt's wedding. "The flower kids have already been chosen, sweetie," I explained gently. "But you get to be my special date, and that's even better." I wore a forest green dress I'd found on clearance and altered myself to look more high-end. It was modest but flattering, chosen specifically to not draw attention away from the bride or bridesmaids. I curled my hair, applied makeup with a careful hand, and put on my one pair of good earrings, silver drops that had been a gift from Jeffrey on my 30th birthday. The ceremony was being held at St. Catherine's Cathedral, an imposing stone church with soaring ceilings and stained glass windows that had a 2-year waiting list for weddings. Vanessa's father had made a substantial donation to secure a last-minute booking. We arrived an hour early, as specified on the invitation for family members. The church steps were already crowded with the wedding planner's assistants, florists making last-minute adjustments to elaborate floral arrangements, and photographers setting up equipment. Noah clutched his new drawing, carefully protected in a folder. "Where do we put the presents?" he asked a tuxedoed usher. "Gifts go to the reception venue," the man replied, barely glancing at us. "Family members?" I nodded. "Right side of the church, please." We made our way inside, where I was surprised to find most of the front pews already reserved with elegant "Family of the Bride" signs. A young woman with a clipboard approached us. "You must be Samantha." She checked her list. "You and your son are in row 12. Row 12. I repeated, utterly confused. "But I'm the groom's sister." She gave me a sympathetic look that suggested this wasn't her decision. "Those are the seating assignments I was given. The front rows are for parents, grandparents, and," she hesitated, "special family members." Special family members. The distinction stung deeply. But I simply nodded and led Noah to our assigned seats, far enough back that we'd barely be able to see the ceremony. As we settled in, Vanessa's extended family began to arrive: cousins, great-aunts, and even what appeared to be distant family friends, all being seated ahead of us. My mom and dad arrived, escorted immediately to the front row. My mother, dressed in an expensive new outfit, didn't even look around for me. They were fully absorbed in their role as parents of the groom, accepting congratulations and looking so proud. It was like I wasn't even there. The ceremony itself was objectively beautiful. The church glowed with candlelight. The music was performed by a string quartet. And when Jeffrey took his place at the altar, he looked happier than I'd seen him in months. I felt this pang of conflicted emotions: joy for his happiness, sadness at our growing distance, and lingering worry about the woman he was choosing. Vanessa made her entrance on her father's arm, her dress a custom-made confection of silk and lace that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Even from our distant seats, I could see she was radiant, and the genuine love on my brother's face as he watched her approach brought tears to my eyes. Noah leaned against me during the vows, his small hand in mine, occasionally whispering questions about the proceedings. As the couple was pronounced husband and wife, he squeezed my fingers. "Now she's really our family, right, Mom?" "That's right," I whispered back, hoping that somehow being officially family might soften Vanessa's heart toward us. The receiving line after the ceremony dashed those hopes quickly. When we finally reached the newlyweds, Jeffrey gave me a quick, distracted hug before being pulled away by Vanessa's mother for photos. Vanessa herself offered a cool cheek for me to air kiss. "Congratulations," I said warmly, determined to start fresh. "The ceremony was beautiful." "Thanks for coming," she replied, her eyes already moving to the guests behind us. She didn't acknowledge Noah at all, even as he tried to hand her his drawing. "I made this for you," he said, his voice small but determined. "Put it with the other gifts, sweetie," she said without looking at it. "We have to take photos now." I guided a disappointed Noah away, tucking his drawing back into its folder. "We'll give it to her later, at a better time," I promised, though I wasn't sure such a time would ever come. The reception was held at the Belmont, the city's most exclusive hotel. The ballroom had been transformed into a winter wonderland theme, despite the June date, with crystal decorations, white flowers, and actual ice sculptures on every table. The cocktail hour was in full swing when we arrived, with servers circulating with champagne and elaborate hors d'oeuvres. I accepted a glass of champagne, desperately needing the liquid courage to face the next few hours. Noah was immediately bored by the adult conversation and lack of other children, so I found him a seat near a window where he could at least watch the boats on the river outside. As I tried to mingle, I couldn't help but notice how Vanessa's friends regarded me with curious, sometimes pitying looks. Several times, I caught snippets of conversation that stopped abruptly when I approached. "Raising the boy all alone, couldn't Jeffrey have found someone from our circle? Heard she lives in that developing area near the old factory." My cheeks burned. At one point, I escaped to the restroom for a moment of peace, only to hear Vanessa's voice from one of the stalls, speaking to who I presumed was her maid of honor. "Jeffrey's family is just so provincial, especially his sister. Did you see that off-the-rack dress? And that child of hers has clearly never been taught proper behavior." I slipped out before they emerged, my cheeks burning even hotter. When I returned to the main room, my mother intercepted me. Her expression was this weird mixture of criticism and concern. "Samantha, I wish you'd made more effort with your appearance today. Vanessa's friends are all so elegantly dressed." "I'm wearing my best, Mom," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Diana sighed, patting my arm condescendingly. Well, try harder with Vanessa, please. She's family now, and Jeffrey really wants you two to get along. Maybe don't mention your situation so much. It makes people uncomfortable. My situation? My life as a single mother that I'd built from the ground up, that I was proud of despite its challenges? I'll do my best, I managed, though inside I was screaming that I'd been trying all along, only to be consistently rejected. As guests began moving into the dining area for dinner, I found Noah and straightened his little tie, so grateful for his innocent presence that kept me anchored. "Are you having fun, Mom?" he asked, seeing straight through my fake smile. "It's a very fancy party," I deflected. "Let's go find our table." I should have been prepared for another slight, but somehow it still hurt when we discovered we were seated at the very back of the room, at a table with distant acquaintances and Jeffrey's colleagues from the office mail room. From our position, we could barely see the head table where my brother, Vanessa, and both sets of parents sat beneath a canopy of twinkling lights and suspended flowers. Noah looked around at our table mates, all adults, all strangers, and then back at me with questioning eyes. "It's okay," I assured him, though we both knew it wasn't. "We won't stay too late." As the salads were served, I noticed Noah watching the head table intently, his young eyes missing nothing. I wondered what he was thinking, how he was processing this clear message that we were outsiders in what should have been our own family celebration. I squeezed his hand under the table, a silent promise that no matter what, he and I were a team. What I didn't realize was that my sensitive, observant little boy was absorbing far more than I imagined, and that before the night was over, his innocent perspective would change everything. Dinner progressed with the usual wedding reception rhythms. Plates cleared, toasts given, glasses clinked. The father of the bride spoke at length about Vanessa's accomplishments and how fortunate Jeffrey was to be joining their family. He emphasized the word fortunate while looking directly at my brother, a not-so-subtle reminder of the financial disparity between the families. "And we've already secured Jeffrey a position at my firm's legal department," he announced to murmurs of approval. "No more of that public defender nonsense." I frowned, knowing how passionate Jeffrey had been about his pro bono work with disadvantaged clients. It was something he'd spoken about with pride, and now it was dismissed as nonsense, without a word of protest from my brother. The best man gave a charming toast full of college anecdotes and predictions of happiness. Jeffrey's speech thanking the guests was brief but sincere. Throughout it all, I kept waiting for him to acknowledge our family. Not just our parents, whom he thanked profusely, but the shared history and bonds that had shaped us both. He never did. As coffee and dessert were served, I thought perhaps the worst was over. Noah was starting to fidget, clearly tired from the long day, and I was contemplating making our exit before the dancing began. That's when Vanessa, slightly flushed from champagne, took the microphone from the DJ for what appeared to be an unplanned speech. "I just want to thank everyone who made this perfect day possible," she began, her voice carrying across the now quiet ballroom. "My amazing parents who gave me everything a girl could dream of." She blew them a kiss. "Jeffrey's parents who raised such a wonderful man." A nod to Diana and Harold. "And especially my gorgeous bridesmaids who've been with me through everything." She paused, taking another sip of champagne, and I sensed a shift in her demeanor, a slight edge entering her voice. "You know, when I first met Jeffrey, I wondered about his background. He was so accomplished, so sophisticated. I couldn't understand certain elements of his family situation." My stomach tightened as her gaze drifted in my direction. "Particularly his sister's circumstances. I mean, here's Jeffrey, this brilliant attorney, and then there's his sister, just a pathetic single mom who couldn't keep a man. Talk about family contrasts." A shocked silence fell over the room. I felt blood drain from my face as every eye turned toward me. Noah looked up, confused by the sudden tension. Then, to my horror, my own mother laughed, a bright, social laugh that cut through the silence like a knife. "Oh, Vanessa," Diana called out. "You're too much, but you're not wrong. Samantha always was our challenging child. She's like a discount model with a scratched label. Almost right, but not quite what you'd want on display." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the guests, people unsure whether they should be amused or appalled. But following the mother of the groom's lead, Vanessa smirked, emboldened by Diana's approval. I just believe children deserve a proper family, she continued, her voice dripping with false concern. Not to be raised by someone who clearly has such poor judgment in both men and life choices. More laughter, louder this time. I sat frozen, humiliation burning through me like acid. My hands shook so badly I had to clench them in my lap. I couldn't look at Noah. Couldn't bear to see his reaction to this public dissection of our family. Jeffrey, to his credit, looked uncomfortable, whispering something to Vanessa that she waved off with another laugh. Oh, don't worry. Everyone knows it's true. I'm just saying what everyone thinks. I should have gotten up then. Should have taken Noah and walked out with whatever dignity I could salvage. But shock had paralyzed me, pinning me to my chair as tears threatened to spill over. This was my brother's wedding. How had it turned into my public shaming? The DJ, sensing disaster, tried to intervene. How about we get the first dance started? Could the newlyweds please come to the dance floor? Vanessa handed over the microphone with a final flourish. Anyway, we all know who got the good genes in that family. Sorry, Samantha. As the crowd's attention shifted to the dance preparations, I felt a small hand on my arm. Noah was looking at me with a mixture of confusion and determination. Mom, can I go to the bathroom? He asked quietly. Yes, of course, I replied automatically, barely processing his words through my haze of humiliation. It's just past the dessert table. He nodded solemnly and slipped away from the table. I sat there trying to compose myself, considering whether to follow him and just keep walking out of the venue altogether. But before I could decide, the DJ announced the first dance, and the lights dimmed as Jeffrey and Vanessa took the floor. I watched through blurring eyes as they began to sway to a romantic ballad. Vanessa was whispering something in Jeffrey's ear, making him smile. My brother, who had sat silently through my public evisceration, now looked completely content in his bubble of newlywed bliss. And then something unexpected happened. As the song reached its chorus, there was movement on the small stage where the DJ was set up. Noah had somehow climbed up beside him and was reaching for the second microphone. The DJ, distracted by managing the music and lights, didn't notice until Noah had already switched it on. Excuse me. My son's clear voice rang out through the ballroom speakers. Excuse me, everyone. The music continued, but all heads turned toward the stage. Vanessa and Jeffrey stopped dancing, looking up in confusion. I know something about the bride, Noah continued, his voice steady despite being the center of attention of hundreds of adults. An absolute hush fell over the room. The DJ, flustered, cut the music mid-song, leaving Noah's voice as the only sound in the vast space. I had risen from my seat, unsure whether to rush to him or let him speak. Something in his determined little face made me pause. 3 weeks ago, Noah said clearly, when Mom took me to the Green Hills Mall to buy Uncle Jeff's wedding present, I saw Aunt Vanessa. She didn't see me because I was in the toy store while Mom was next door buying a picture frame. Oh God, what had he seen? I hadn't let Noah out of my sight at the mall. He must have spotted something through the store window that connected to the main concourse. Aunt Vanessa was with a man who wasn't Uncle Jeffrey, Noah continued innocently. They were next to the fountain and they were kissing. Not just a quick kiss, but the kind that's in movies where people hold on to each other really tight. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Vanessa's face had gone sheet white. Jeffrey stood motionless beside her, his expression unreadable. The man had dark hair and a little beard, and he was wearing a blue jacket with patches on the elbows. He gave Aunt Vanessa a key and said, "Can't wait for next weekend." And Aunt Vanessa said it would be their special place just for them. I recognized the description immediately. Marcus, Vanessa's ex-boyfriend from college. She had shown me a photo once during one of our early attempts at sisterly bonding, saying they'd remained good friends after breaking up. I didn't tell anyone, Noah finished, his innocent eyes scanning the crowd, because grown-ups said it's rude to interrupt. But the bride interrupted my mom, so I thought it was okay now. For a moment, the entire reception hall was suspended in shocked silence. Then several things happened at once. Vanessa let out a shriek of denial. That's a lie. That little brat is making it up. Jeffrey turned to her, his face hardening with suspicion. Marcus? You were with Marcus 3 weeks ago. Vanessa's father stood up, his face purple with rage. Get that child off the stage immediately. This is slander. And my mother, Diana, who had laughed at my humiliation just minutes before, now looked between Vanessa and Noah with dawning horror. As for me, I finally broke free of my paralysis and rushed toward the stage, not to silence Noah, but to protect him from the chaos that was erupting around us. As I reached the stage, Noah looked down at me with earnest eyes. Did I say something wrong, Mom? The rawness of his innocent question pierced through the chaos of the moment. I extended my arms and he climbed down into them, his small body warm against mine as I held him close. You told the truth, honey, I whispered, even as Vanessa's continued denials echoed through the ballroom. That child is disturbed. He needs professional help, she was shouting, her perfect makeup now streaked with tears of rage. Jeffrey, you can't possibly believe this nonsense. But Jeffrey's face told a different story. The initial shock had given way to something harder, more calculating. The expression he wore in the courtroom when examining a hostile witness. 3 weeks ago was the weekend you said you had that spa retreat with your mother, he said quietly, his words somehow carrying despite the growing murmurs from the guests. It was a spa weekend. Vanessa insisted, looking to her mother for backup. Vanessa's mother nodded vigorously. Absolutely. We were at Lysan the entire weekend. Jeffrey pulled out his phone, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. Funny, because you posted photos from that weekend, tagged at Lysan. But when I called to book us a couple's massage last week, they said they were closed for renovations all last month. The color drained from both women's faces. By now, Noah and I had made our way to a quiet corner away from the center of the drama. He leaned against me, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. Why is Aunt Vanessa so mad that I saw her friend? He asked, genuinely confused. Because that man wasn't just a friend, I tried to explain gently. And she wasn't supposed to be kissing him when she was going to marry Uncle Jeffrey. Noah's brow furrowed as he processed this. So, she was being sneaky, like when Tommy in my class takes extra cookies and lies about it? Something like that, I agreed, but much more serious. Back at the head table, Vanessa's defense was crumbling. Her father had taken over, trying to control the situation with the same authoritative tone he probably used in board meetings. This is ridiculous. We're not going to let a child's imagination ruin this beautiful day. Everyone, please return to your seats. DJ music, please. But it was too late. The carefully orchestrated wedding reception had descended into clusters of whispering guests, many already gathering their belongings, sensing that the celebration was effectively over. And then, unexpectedly, another voice joined the fray. Connor, Jeffrey's best friend and best man, stood up from his seat at the head table. Jeff, he said, his voice tight with evident discomfort. I need to tell you something. I saw Vanessa with a man matching that description about a month ago coming out of the Parkview apartments on 7th Street. I wasn't sure what to think, and I didn't want to ruin things before the wedding without being certain. The Parkview, Jeffrey repeated, his voice hollow. Isn't that where Marcus lives now? The look of pure hatred Vanessa shot toward Connor would have withered a lesser man. But he stood his ground, loyalty to his friend finally outweighing his reluctance to get involved. You too, Vanessa hissed. You're all trying to sabotage me. This is insane. But her protests were growing desperate, and even her parents looked less convinced of her innocence. Jeffrey turned to her, his voice low but intense. Was Noah telling the truth, Vanessa? Were you with Marcus 3 weeks ago? For a moment, it seemed like she might continue denying everything, then perhaps calculating that a partial confession would be better than a complete exposure. Her strategy shifted. It was just a goodbye meeting, she said, her voice softening to the persuasive tone that had probably worked on Jeffrey many times before. Marcus and I have history, you know that. He wanted closure before I got married, and I thought it would be the mature thing to give him that, by kissing him. By taking a key to what sounds like a private meeting place? Jeffrey pressed. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Vanessa insisted, reaching for Jeffrey's hand, which he pulled away. It was nothing. Just a moment of nostalgia that meant nothing compared to what we have. From our corner, I watched my brother's face as he processed her words, searched her eyes. I had known Jeffrey my entire life. Had seen him think through problems, weigh evidence, make decisions. I recognized the exact moment when something fundamental shifted in his perception. "Your bag," he said suddenly. "What?" Vanessa looked confused. "Your purse. Give me your purse." "Jeffrey, this is absurd. Give me the purse." Each word was clipped. Decisive. After a moment of tense standoff, Vanessa reluctantly handed over her small satin clutch. Jeffrey opened it and methodically removed its contents: lipstick, a compact, a slim wallet, tissues, and finally, a single key on a plain ring. He held it up. "This isn't a key to our condo or your parents' house or any place I know about." Vanessa snatched it back. "It's just a spare key to my office." "Your office uses card access," Jeffrey replied flatly. "No physical keys." The reception hall had gone completely silent again, hundreds of guests watching this marital implosion in real time. Noah tugged at my hand. "Can we go home now?" he whispered. "I don't like this party anymore." I nodded, gathering our things. Whatever happened next between Jeffrey and Vanessa wasn't something Noah needed to witness. We had started moving quietly toward the exit when Jeffrey's voice rang out. "Samantha, wait." I turned, surprised to hear my name. Jeffrey was walking toward us, leaving a tearful Vanessa behind with her increasingly agitated parents. When he reached us, he knelt down to Noah's eye level. "Thank you for telling the truth," he said solemnly. "That was a very brave thing to do." Noah nodded seriously. "Mom says lying makes things worse even when the truth is hard." Jeffrey looked up at me then, really looked at me for the first time in months, and I saw recognition in his eyes, of the sister he'd grown up with, the values we'd shared, the bond that had been temporarily overshadowed, but not broken. "She's right," he agreed, his voice thick with emotion. I should have remembered that myself. He stood up, facing me now. "I'm sorry, Sam, for everything. For not seeing what was happening, for letting you be treated this way." Before I could respond, Vanessa's father appeared behind Jeffrey, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. "This is outrageous," he growled. "We've invested over $100,000 in this wedding, and you're going to let it be derailed by the imagination of a child? Get back to your bride, finish this reception, and we'll sort out any misunderstandings privately." Jeffrey turned to him slowly. "With all due respect, sir, I believe we're well beyond misunderstandings at this point." "Do you have any idea what you're throwing away?" the older man demanded. "Not just Vanessa, but your future with our firm. Connections that could make your career." Jeffrey's smile was sad, but determined. "I'm beginning to see exactly what I'd be giving up and what I've already risked losing that's far more valuable." He turned back to me. "Take Noah home. I'll call you tomorrow, I promise." As Noah and I finally made our exit, the sounds of continued argument faded behind us. In the quiet of the hotel lobby, Noah looked up at me with tired eyes. "Did I do something wrong, Mom?" he asked again, uncertainty in his voice. I knelt down and wrapped him in the tightest hug. "No, sweetheart. You did something very brave and honest. Sometimes grown-ups forget how important truth is, and it takes someone with a pure heart to remind us." He seemed satisfied with this explanation, leaning his head against my shoulder as we waited for our car. Behind us, the elegant wedding that had become a battlefield receded, and ahead lay the quiet sanctuary of our modest apartment, a home built on love and honesty rather than appearances and deception. The drive home was quiet, with Noah falling asleep almost immediately in the back seat of our rented limousine. I sat beside him, gently stroking his hair, my mind replaying the evening's events in an endless loop. The humiliation, the shock, the unexpected vindication. It was too much to process all at once. When we arrived home, I carefully carried Noah to his bed, removing only his shoes and tie before tucking him in. He stirred briefly, mumbling something about Uncle Jeffrey before drifting back to sleep. I stood watching him for a long moment, marveling at his intuitive sense of right and wrong, his courage in the face of adult complications. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," I whispered, though he couldn't hear. Sleep eluded me that night. I sat in our small living room with a cup of tea, alternately reliving painful moments and wondering what was happening back at the reception. Had Jeffrey and Vanessa somehow reconciled? Had her family's influence prevailed? I checked my phone repeatedly, but there were no calls or messages. Around 2 in the morning, I was startled by a knock at the door. Cautiously peering through the peephole, I was shocked to see Jeffrey standing there, still in his wedding tuxedo, though the bow tie was undone and hanging loose around his neck. "Can I come in?" he asked when I opened the door. His voice was hoarse, his eyes red-rimmed from what might have been tears or exhaustion, or both. I stepped aside, letting him enter the apartment he'd once visited regularly, but hadn't set foot in for months. He stood awkwardly in the center of the living room, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. "Noah is asleep," I said quietly. "Do you want some tea or something stronger?" "Tea is fine," he replied, sinking onto the couch. "Though I probably need the stronger option." I busied myself in the kitchen, giving him a moment to collect himself. When I returned with 2 mugs, he accepted one gratefully, cradling it between his hands. "So," I ventured after a moment of silence, "what happened after we left?" Jeffrey took a long sip before answering. "Chaos. Complete chaos." Vanessa had a full meltdown, alternating between denial, accusations, and eventually a partial confession. When Connor and 2 other friends admitted they'd seen her with Marcus on separate occasions. "I'm so sorry," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, no one deserves to discover such betrayal on what should be the happiest day of their life. Her father threatened to sue Noah for defamation, Jeffrey continued, a flash of anger crossing his face. Can you believe that? Threatening to sue an 8-year-old child for telling the truth. He was just trying to protect her, I said, though I felt no sympathy for either of them. I told him if he so much as looked in Noah's direction, I'd countersue for fraud and emotional distress and make sure every society column in the city got the full story. Jeffrey's jaw tightened. That shut him up pretty quickly. And Vanessa? She eventually admitted she'd been seeing Marcus off and on throughout our entire relationship. The key was to a condo he bought specifically for their meetings. Apparently, our engagement accelerated their timeline. She was planning to go through with the wedding for appearances and financial security while maintaining her relationship with him on the side. The calculated nature of the deception was breathtaking. Why even pursue in the first place then? According to what she finally shouted at me before storming out, Marcus doesn't have the social standing or financial prospects to satisfy her parents. I was the respectable face, the appropriate husband for public consumption, while he was the passion. We sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of what might have been a lifetime of lies and betrayal had Noah not inadvertently exposed the truth. "What about Mom and Dad?" I finally asked. Jeffrey's expression darkened. "That's another story entirely. Mom tried to smooth everything over, suggesting we all just move past this unpleasantness and continue with the reception. When I refused, she actually blamed you and Noah for ruining everything. The pain of that betrayal cut deep, though it shouldn't have surprised me after her earlier cruelty. Dad was a bit better," Jeffrey continued. He seemed genuinely shocked by both Vanessa's behavior and Mom's reaction to it. They had a pretty intense argument right there at the head table. "I can imagine," I murmured, thinking of my father's generally quiet acceptance of whatever social script my mother dictated. "I told them both that what they allowed to happen to you tonight was unforgivable," Jeffrey said, his voice growing stronger. "That I was ashamed of them, especially Mom, for joining in Vanessa's attack on you." Tears pricked at my eyes, unexpected emotion welling up at this belated defense. "You didn't have to do that," I said softly. "Yes, I did." Jeffrey set down his mug and leaned forward intently. "Sam, I've been blind. Worse than blind, I've been willfully ignorant. I let Vanessa isolate me from you and Noah because it was easier than confronting the tensions. I ignored red flags because I was flattered by her attention and her family's acceptance." He ran a hand through his hair, disheveling it further. "And I let her treat you like you were somehow less than when the truth is you're the strongest person I know. Raising Noah on your own, building